when struggling artist Emma Chen gets her big break at an elite Manhattan gallery. A chance encounter with mysterious billionaire Nathaniel Hayes changes everything. What starts as a simple accident with spilled wine quickly spirals into a deadly game of secrets, betrayal, and revenge. Tonight, we unravel a story where love clashes with secrets. Hearts are tested, and one choice can change everything. Stay until the end. You won't believe the twists. Comment your city. Like, subscribe, and share with someone who believes in true love. Let's dive in. The crimson wine arced through the air like blood against the gallery's pristine white walls. Emma Chen watched it happen in slow motion, her emerald vintage dress catching every drop as the liquid splashed across her chest. The vintage silk, her last $100, her only armor for tonight's gallery opening, now ruined. The word escaped before she could stop it, raw and sharp in the hushed reverence of the Meridian Gallery. Around her, well-dressed patrons turned to stare, their champagne flutes pausing mid-sip. Heat crawled up her neck as whispers began to ripple through the crowd. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The man who'd collided with the waiter stepped forward, his voice carrying the kind of authority that commanded boardrooms. His tall, silver-threaded temples, a suit that cost more than her rent. Everything about him screamed money and power. Everything she'd learned to distrust. "Don't." Emma's voice came out harder than she intended. She dabbed futilely at the spreading stains, knowing the dress was beyond saving. 5 years of coffee shop shifts and ramen dinners to afford this moment, too. Have her painting hang beside real artists, and now she looked like she'd been in a bar fight. "Please, let me help. I have a place nearby. My housekeeper can fix this." Emma looked up sharply. The offer hung between them, loaded with implications. She'd heard variations of this line before, usually followed by hands that wandered and expectations that made her skin crawl. But this man's eyes held something different. Guilt, yes, but also a recognition she couldn't place. "I don't need rescuing." The words tasted bitter, echoing her mother's voice from years of warnings about men like him. Men who thought money could buy anything, anyone. "That's not what I'm offering." His voice dropped lower, and for a moment the gallery noise faded around them. "I'm offering to fix what I broke." Emma's painting, City Dreams, caught her eye. Across the room, a small crowd had gathered around it, their animated discussion carrying fragments of praise and critique. Her first real chance, possibly her only chance, and she was standing here soaked in wine, arguing with a stranger who probably collected art the way other people collected stamps. "You're building?" She surprised herself by saying it. "How far?" 3 blocks. The smart part of her brain screamed warnings. Desperate part. The part that had been clawing its way up from nothing for 26 years. Whispered that sometimes you had to take risks to survive. "Fine, but I want to be back here in an hour." As they walked toward the exit, Emma caught sight of her reflection in the gallery's glass doors. The wine stains looked like wounds against the emerald silk, dark and spreading. She looked like she was bleeding. The man beside her moved with the fluid confidence of someone who'd never had to question his place in the world. When he held the door open, she noticed his hands. Clean, manicured, but scarred across the knuckles. Violence, maybe, or just the kind of accidents that happen when you built empires with your bare hands. "I'm Nathaniel," he said as they stepped onto the sidewalk. The evening air carried the scent of rain and exhaust, the eternal perfume of Manhattan. "Emma, the artist." She stopped walking. "How do you know that?" Nathaniel's smile held secrets. "Your painting. Been watching." "You watch it all evening?" "The way you look at it. Like you're seeing something no one else can see. Like it's yours." A chill ran down Emma's spine that had nothing to do with the cooling night air. She'd been careful, anonymous in the crowd. How long had he been watching? Her, and why? "Just how long have you been planning this accident, Nathaniel?" Nathaniel's face went carefully blank, the kind of expression Emma had seen on her father's face when the police came asking questions. "That's quite an accusation," said Emma. Stepped closer. Close enough to smell his cologne, expensive and subtle, close enough to see the fleck of gold in his dark eyes. "You knew my painting. You've been watching me. This whole spilled wine thing feels a little too convenient." The street around them buzzed with evening energy, couples heading to dinner, tourists snapping photos, the eternal rhythm of a city that never stopped moving. But in the bubble of space between Emma and Nathaniel, everything felt suspended. "You're right." His admission hit her like a slap. "I noticed you the moment you walked in. You moved through that gallery like you belonged there, but your hands were shaking. Your dress is vintage but well-maintained, expensive but not new. You spent money, you didn't have to be there tonight." Emma's chest tightened. "So you decided to play knight in shining armor?" "I decided to introduce myself." The wine was genuinely an accident. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, messing the perfect styling. Though I'm starting to think accidents don't just happen around me, they get engineered. "What's that supposed to mean?" Instead of answering, Nathaniel pulled out his phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen before he held it out to her. Security footage from inside the gallery, timestamp, showing 20 minutes ago. Emma watched herself examining a sculpture, watched Nathaniel approach from behind, watched a figure in a server's uniform deliberately step into his path. "I have enemies, Emma. People who would use an innocent woman to get close to me." His voice carried a weight that suggested those enemies weren't just business competitors. "The question is, are you one of them?" Emma stared at the phone, her mind racing. The server's face was partially obscured, but there was something deliberate about the collision. Something planned. "You think someone set this up? I think you're either the most unlucky woman in Manhattan, or you're very good at playing innocent." Nathaniel's eyes searched her face. "Which is it?" The accusation should have made her angry. Instead, it made her laugh, a sound sharp enough to cut glass. "You want to know about playing innocent? I've been doing it my whole life. Innocent art student, innocent scholarship kid, innocent girl who doesn't know the kind of games rich men play." She stepped back, putting distance between them. "But I know exactly what you are. And what am I? Dangerous." The word hung between them like a challenge. The kind of man who has security footage of his own gallery appearances. The kind who talks about enemies like it's normal. "You're not some tech CEO who collects art, are you?" Nathaniel's smile was razor sharp. "No, Emma, I'm not. No." Rumbled overhead, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Emma felt them hit her shoulders, cold against the wine-stained silk. She should run. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away, go home to her tiny studio apartment, forget about the gallery and the painting and the man with secrets in his eyes. But she'd spent her whole life running from opportunities because they seemed too good, too dangerous, too much. And something about the way Nathaniel looked at her, like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve, made her want to stay. "Your penthouse," she said finally. "Is that where you take all your problems?" "Only the interesting ones." Emma's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Stay close to him tonight. Day. Your life depends on it." She looked up sharply, but Nathaniel was already watching her face. "What is it?" Emma held out her phone. "Nathaniel." Read the message, and something cold settled in his expression. "We need to go now." "Why? Who would send this?" "Someone who knows you're in danger." He took her arm, not roughly, but with unmistakable urgency. "Someone who knows I can't protect you out here in the open." As they hurried toward his building, Emma caught a glimpse of movement in her peripheral vision, a figure in dark clothing, keeping pace with them from across the street. When she turned to look directly, they melted into the shadows between buildings. "Nathaniel," she said quietly. "We're being followed. Don't look back." Nathaniel's grip on Emma's arm tightened as they approached the gleaming facade of the Excelsior building. "They want to know if we've spotted them." The doorman, a mountain of a man with intelligent eyes, nodded once at Nathaniel. No words exchanged, but Emma caught the subtle hand signal that passed between them. Whatever Nathaniel's real business, it wasn't just technology. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt eternal. Emma watched their reflection in the polished steel doors, to people who'd been strangers an hour ago, bound together by circumstances neither of them fully understood. The wine stains on her dress looked black in the elevator's lighting, like old blood. "You know who sent that text?" she said. "It wasn't a question. I have suspicions." The elevator opened directly into his apartment, and Emma found herself stepping into a space that was both fortress and sanctuary. Floor-tisseling windows offered a commanding view of Manhattan. But she noticed they were bulletproof glass, subtle but unmistakable reinforcement visible in the thickness. Rosa. Voice carried through the apartment. We have company. The woman who emerged from the kitchen wasn't at all what Emma had expected. Mid-50s, yes, but her movements had the fluid precision of someone trained in more than fabric care. Her eyes swept over Emma with professional assessment that went far beyond wine stains. How bad? Rosa asked. Unknown. Possible surveillance since the gallery. Emma received a warning text. Rosa nodded and disappeared down a hallway, returning with items that definitely weren't cleaning supplies. A tablet displaying multiple security feeds, a small black device that she swept through the air around Emma, and something that looked suspiciously like a weapon. She's clean, Rosa announced. No tracking devices, no recording equipment. She paused, studying Emma's face. But she's terrified. Emma wanted to protest, to maintain the facade of control she'd worn like armor her entire life. Instead, the words tumbled out raw and honest. I don't understand what's happening. I just wanted to show my painting. I just wanted one chance to prove I belonged somewhere. The vulnerability in her voice seemed to affect Nathaniel more than any accusation had. He moved closer, his expression softening. Emma, I need you to tell me the truth. Get that gallery showing? My professor, Professor Williams? He said he had connections, that my work deserved to be seen. Williams, Rosa, and Nathaniel exchanged a look. First name? David Williams. Emma's stomach began to sink. Why? Nathaniel pulled out his phone, scrolling through what looked like a database. When he found what he was looking for, he turned the screen toward her. A photograph of her professor, but the name underneath read David Cameron. The profile was extensive, documenting connections to various criminal organizations. He's not a professor, Emma. He's a recruiter. Finds people with specific talents, specific vulnerabilities, and places them where they can be useful. Emma sank onto the leather sofa, the implications crashing over her like a tide. My scholarship, my gallery showing, all of it. All of it designed to get you close to me. Nathaniel sat across from her, his voice gentle, despite the brutal truth he was delivering. The question is whether you knew. I didn't. The words came out fierce, desperate. I swear to you I didn't know. Rosa approached with a cup of tea. But Emma caught the woman studying her face with the intensity of a polygraph examiner. She's telling the truth, Rosa said finally. But that doesn't mean she's safe. Nathaniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind we're staying here isn't an option anymore. He stood, moving with sudden urgency. Rosa, initiate Protocol 7. We're moving to the safe house. What's Protocol 7? Emma asked. The kind of protocol that means someone just put a target on your back. Nathaniel was already heading toward what she'd assumed was a closet, but was actually an armory. Congratulations, Emma. You've just become the most dangerous woman in Manhattan. The lights went out. Emergency lighting bathed the apartment in red and through the bulletproof windows. Emma could see figures rappelling down from the roof above. 2. Late, Rosa said grimly, chambering around in her weapon. They're already here. Emma's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. He's not who you think he is. When you find out the truth about what he did to your brother, you'll wish you'd never met him. The room went completely silent, except for the sound of Emma's phone hitting the marble floor as it slipped from her trembling fingers. The silence stretched like a held breath before shattering into chaos. Glass exploded inward as figures in tactical gear burst through the supposedly bulletproof windows. Emma found herself pressed against the floor as gunfire erupted around her. Rosa and Nathaniel moving with lethal precision that spoke of experience far beyond corporate boardrooms. Emma. Nathaniel's voice cut through the noise. The panic room. Behind the bookshelf, but Emma couldn't move. The words from the text message replayed in her mind on an endless loop. What he did to your brother. Her brother Michael, who died 3 years ago in what the police called a random mugging. Who'd been working as a cybersecurity consultant before his death. Michael, who'd been investigating something that had made him paranoid and secretive in his final weeks. Emma. Nathaniel reached for her, but she pulled away. My brother. The words came out hoarse. You knew my brother. Even in the middle of combat, Nathaniel's face changed. Guilt, recognition, and something that might have been grief flickered across his features. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time. Emma stood, ignoring Rosa's shouted warning to stay down. Before I follow you anywhere else, before I trust you with my life, I need to know the truth. A bullet shattered the lamp beside her head, but Emma didn't flinch. She was past fear now, past everything except the need for answers that had been eating at her for 3 years. Nathaniel fired twice, dropping one of the attackers, before turning back to her. Your brother discovered something he shouldn't have. Something about my business, about the people I work with, and you killed him for it. No. The word came out raw, desperate. I tried to save him. Another wave of attackers poured through the broken windows. Rosa was backing toward them, laying down covering fire, her movements precise and professional. Whatever therapy session this is, we need to move it to a more secure location. But Emma stood frozen as memories crashed together. Michael's phone calls in the weeks before his death, his growing paranoia, his insistence that he'd uncovered something big, and then the night. He died, a phone call from an unknown number, a voice saying, your brother was trying to expose us. We couldn't let that happen. The voice on the phone, Emma whispered. The night he died, it wasn't you. No. Nathaniel was moving now, pulling her toward the hidden door Rosa had opened in the bookshelf. But it should have been me making that call instead of them. I should have gotten to him first. They stumbled into a narrow corridor lined with monitors and emergency supplies. Rosa sealed the entrance behind them as the sound of footsteps echoed through the apartment they'd just abandoned. Explain? Emma demanded. All of it. Nathaniel leaned against the wall, blood seeping through his shirt where a bullet had grazed his shoulder. I run a private intelligence operation. We specialize in corporate espionage, but sometimes that bleeds into other areas. Your brother was investigating Hayes Technologies because he suspected we were involved in something illegal. Were you? Yes. The admission hung between them like a confession. I was laundering money for people who make their living in violence. Your brother found the trail. Emma felt sick. So you had him killed. I tried to recruit him. Nathaniel's voice was barely audible. I offered him money, protection, a way out. He refused. Said he had a sister to think about, that he couldn't be part of something that would put you in danger. And when he wouldn't cooperate, my partners decided he was a liability. Nathaniel looked directly at her, and she saw 3 years of guilt reflected in his eyes. I was supposed to eliminate the threat personally. Instead, I warned him to run. Emma's legs gave out. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the concrete floor of the hidden corridor. He didn't run. Came looking for evidence. Something concrete he could take to the FBI, he thought. If he could expose us properly, with documentation, it would keep you safe from retaliation. Nathaniel sat across from her, his hands shaking as he applied pressure to his wound. They were waiting for him. You've spent 3 years feeling guilty about it. I've spent 3 years trying to find a way to make it right. Rosa's voice came from the communications station she'd set up. We have a problem. They're not just here for us. They've got surveillance on Emma's apartment, her job, her remaining family. This is a cleanup operation. Emma looked up sharply. What remaining family? Your mother? Sacramento? Your uncle in Portland? Rosa's fingers moved quickly across keyboards. As of 6 hours ago, they went missing. The world tilted. Everything Emma thought she knew about her life, her choices, her independence, crumbled. She'd been a pawn from the beginning, manipulated and positioned like a piece on a chessboard. This was never about me getting close to you, she realized. This was about you getting close to me. Nathaniel nodded slowly. After your brother died, I had you watched, protected from a distance. I made sure you got the scholarship, made sure Professor Williams found you. I thought if I could give you the life your brother wanted for you, it would balance the scales somehow. So you've been controlling my life for 3 years. I've been trying to keep you alive for 3 years. Nathaniel's voice broke. It turns out that was the one thing guaranteed to put you in danger. Rosa's voice cut through their conversation. We need to move now. They found the secondary entrance. As they gathered their equipment, Emma made a decision that surprised even her. She reached for one of Rosa's spare weapons, checking the safety with movements that came from muscle memory she didn't know she possessed. Nathaniel stared at her. My brother taught me to shoot when I was 16, said a woman living alone in the city needed to know how to protect herself. Emma's voice was steady now, all the fear and confusion crystallized into purpose. Turns out he was more right than either of us knew. The sound of footsteps echoed from both directions now. They were trapped, with enemies closing in from ahead and behind. There's something else you need to know, Nathaniel said quietly, about why they're really here tonight. Emma met his eyes. What? Your brother didn't just find evidence of money. Laundering, he found proof of something much worse. And before he died, he hid it somewhere. Where? Nathaniel's smile was grim. In your painting, the one hanging in the gallery right now. City Dreams isn't just art, Emma. It's a map. The revelation hit Emma like a physical blow. Her painting, the work she'd poured her soul into, the piece that was supposed to represent her dreams and ambitions, had been corrupted by her dead brother's desperate attempt to expose the truth. He came to see you painted, Emma whispered, memories flooding back. 3 weeks before he died, said he wanted to understand my process. He embedded GPS coordinates in the brushstrokes, Nathaniel confirmed. Locations of offshore accounts, safe houses, burial sites, everything my partners didn't want found. The footsteps were getting closer from both directions. Rosa had positioned herself at one end of the corridor, weapon ready. Emma found herself at the other end, her brother's training coming back too. Her in muscle memory and instinct. So what's the plan? Emma asked. We can't stay here and we can't go back for the painting while half of Manhattan's criminal underworld is hunting us. We don't need to go back for it. Nathaniel pulled out his phone, scrolling to a high-resolution photo of City Dreams. I've been studying this painting for 3 years, trying to decode what your brother hid. The coordinates are in the color. Patterns. The way certain brushstrokes intersect. Emma stared at the image of her own work, seeing it now with completely different eyes. What she'd painted as abstract representations of urban energy were actually maps of corruption, violence, and murder. You've known all along what it meant, not all along. But I figured it out about 6 months ago. Nathaniel began entering coordinates into a different app. One location in particular kept appearing in the pattern. A storage facility in Queens, where my brother hid the evidence. Where your brother hid everything. Bank records, photographs, recorded conversations. Enough to bring down an entire network. The sound of approaching footsteps stopped. An unnatural silence filled the corridor, the kind that preceded violence. They're about to breach, Rosa said quietly. Emma looked at Nathaniel, at this man who had tried to save her brother and failed, who had spent 3 years orchestrating her life from the shadows, who had pulled her into a world of violence and betrayal. She should hate him. Part of her did, but another part recognized something she'd never allowed herself to acknowledge. The first time in years she felt truly alive was when she was in danger beside him. If we get out of this, she said, I want to see that storage facility, Emma. Nathaniel's voice was gentle. You need to know that whatever we find there, it won't bring Michael back. It won't undo the choices I made or the people I've been working with. No, Emma agreed. But it might finally let him rest. The lights went out. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red as explosions echoed from both ends of the corridor. Rosa and Emma opened fire simultaneously, their muzzle flashes, illuminating figures in tactical gear who moved like ghosts through the smoke in the chaos. Emma found herself back to back with Nathaniel. Their movements synchronized as if they'd been fighting together for years instead of hours. When his gun clicked empty, she pressed her spare magazine into his hand without being asked. When she stumbled, his arm was there to steady her. The service tunnel, Rosa shouted over the gunfire. Behind the electrical panel, they fought their way through smoke and bodies to a maintenance access that led to the building's underground service network. As they crawled through narrow spaces that smelled of concrete dust and old metal, Emma realized that everything about her carefully planned life had been an illusion. But this desperate flight through the darkness with people who might be enemies or allies felt more real than anything she'd experienced in years. They emerged 2 blocks away, in the basement of a building that looked abandoned but clearly wasn't. Rosa led them to a garage where 3 motorcycles waited, already fueled and ready. "The storage facility," Nathaniel said, handing Emma a helmet. "Are you sure you want to see what your brother died for?" Emma swung her leg over the bike, noting absently that her ruined vintage dress rode up indecently. She didn't care. The woman who had worried about impressions and propriety was gone, replaced by someone harder and more honest. "I'm sure." The ride through Queens took 45 minutes. Dawn was breaking over the city by the time they reached the storage facility, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that reminded Emma of her painting. Of the map her brother had hidden in plain sight. Unit 247 was small, anonymous, paid for in cash, according to the records Nathaniel accessed on his phone. Inside, they found boxes of documents, hard drives, and photographs that told the story of a network that reached into government, law enforcement, and corporate boardrooms. "Jesus," Rosa breathed, looking through financial records. "This is enough to take down half the power structure in this city." Emma found herself staring at a photograph of her brother, clearly taken without his knowledge, as he met with someone in what looked like a parking garage. The man he was speaking to was partially obscured, but she could see enough to recognize the scarred hands, the expensive watch. "You met with him," she said to Nathaniel. "This was your meeting, the night before he died." "I was trying to convince him to disappear, to let me handle the situation." Nathaniel's voice was barely audible. "He said he couldn't run because he'd promised someone he would see this through. He promised me." Emma's throat tightened. "The last time we spoke, he said he was working on something that would change both our lives. He said he was tired of being afraid, tired of letting people get away with things because they had money and power." Rosa had been quietly working at a computer terminal they'd found in the storage unit. "I've got everything uploaded to multiple secure servers. Even if they kill us all, this information will still get out."
Oh.
Emma asked. Nathaniel looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Now you have a choice. Rosa can get you new identification, a clean passport, money to start over anywhere in the world. You can disappear, live the life your brother wanted for you, or you can help me finish what he started." Emma thought about her painting hanging in the gallery, probably destroyed now by whoever had come looking for them. She thought about her small, safe life that had turned out to be neither small nor safe. She thought about her brother dying, alone in an alley because he'd believed in justice more than he'd believed in survival. What exactly would I be signing up for? War, Nathaniel said simply. Against people who think money and violence make them untouchable. It's dangerous. It's probably hopeless. And there's a good chance we'll both end up like your brother. Emma picked up one of the photographs from her brother's evidence collection. It showed a mass grave, bodies that had been buried because they'd gotten in the way of profit margins and power games. She thought about the wine-stained dress she'd worn to the gallery, how she'd worried about fitting in with people who funded atrocities. "I spent my whole life trying to be good enough, clean enough, respectable enough to deserve a place in their world." She set the photograph down carefully. Turns out their world isn't worth belonging to. She looked at Nathaniel, at this man, who had been her enemy and her protector, who had failed to save her brother, but might help her avenge him. "When do we start?" 3 months later, the first arrests began. Corporate executives, government officials, law enforcement officers. It's all connected by a web of corruption that had seemed untouchable, until someone had decided to map it in abstract art and hide it in plain sight. Emma watched the morning news from a safe house in Portugal, her dark hair now blonde, her artist hands learning new skills from Rosa's patient instruction. The painting City Dreams had been recovered from the gallery and was now evidence in what the media was calling the largest organized crime investigation in New York's history. "Any regrets?" Nathaniel asked, joining her at the window that looked out over the Atlantic. Emma considered the question seriously. She'd given up her identity, her dreams of artistic recognition, her safe, small life. She'd become someone who carried weapons and false passports, who lived in shadows and spoke in codes. She'd become, in many ways, exactly the kind of person her mother had warned her to stay away from. None, she said finally. Nathaniel smiled. And Emma realized that somewhere in the chaos of the last few months, she'd fallen in love with him. Not despite his dangerous secrets, but because he'd trusted her with them, because he'd offered her the choice to walk away, and when she'd chosen to stay, he'd made sure she was equipped to survive the consequences. "What's next?" she asked. "Moscow," he said. "Apparently your brother's evidence reaches further than we thought." Emma laughed, surprising herself. 6 months ago, the most exciting thing in her life had been getting her painting accepted to a gallery showing. Now she was an international fugitive bringing down criminal networks across 3 continents. Moscow, it is. As they prepared to leave Portugal, Emma found herself thinking about the gallery opening that had started everything. She'd worn her best dress, put on her most careful makeup, tried so hard to look like she belonged in that world of cultured conversation and expensive. Why now she understood that she'd never belonged there because she was meant for something much more dangerous, much more important, and much more true. Her brother had given her a map hidden in her own art. Nathaniel had given her the tools to read it, and she had given herself permission to become someone worth being. The morning sun caught the waves outside their window, turning the water gold and crimson, the colors of truth and consequence. Emma Chen was dead. The woman who had taken her place had work to do. The end.